This amendment makes a simple addition to the committee rules to require that any federal government witness appearing before our committee must disclose substantial financial interests related to the subject matter of the hearing unless both the chairman and the ranking member agree that there is good cause for noncompliance. Now, we all know that there are complex business ties affecting President Trump's White House. These potential conflicts are obviously not limited to the President himself. A simple look at the list of nominees put forward by the President shows that we have people involved in active litigation against the very agency that they're now tasked to lead. A man who previously held the top position in the world's largest publicly traded international oil and gas company, and even members of the President's own family slated to be among his top advisors. They have interests of their own that could intersect with official duties. The American people are deeply troubled by these conflicts of interest. Meanwhile, we've seen the President disregard federal judges and the rule of law in a way that can only be described as Nixonian, with apologies to President Nixon. This committee should help provide some of the transparency and accountability that the administration refuses so far to provide. And my concern is not simply a Watergate type of scandal. It's a Teapot Dome type of scandal from the 1920s. That was a bribery scheme involving the leasing of our nation's natural resources without competitive bidding, and it saw the Secretary of Interior at that time go to jail, the first cabinet member ever to go to prison. Now, in this case, fortunately, and I've said this publicly, I think the President's nominee for Secretary of Interior is his very best choice, bar none. But with lobbyists running the transition effort and campaign donors filling the cabinet, I believe this amendment is necessary to help the American public feel confident that other witnesses before this committee are speaking in the public interest and not in their own financial interest. So I ask members to support this amendment, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor of the amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. No. The noes have it. Recorded. Go.
Mr. Bishop?
No.
Mr. Bishop votes no. Mr. Grijalva? Mr. Grijalva votes yes. Mr. Young? Mr. Young votes no. Ms. Napolitano? Ms. Napolitano votes yes. Mr. Gomert? Ms. Bordallo? Ms. Bordallo votes yes. Mr. Lamborn? Mr. Lamborn votes no. Mr. Costa? Mr. Costa votes yes. Mr. Whitman? Mr. Whitman votes no. Mr. Sablan? Mr. McClintock? Mr. McClintock votes no. Ms. Sangas? Mr. Pierce? Mr. Huffman? Mr. Huffman votes yes. Mr. Thompson? Mr. Thompson votes no. Mr. Lowenthal? Mr. Lowenthal votes yes. Mr. Gosar? Mr. Gosar votes no. Mr. Byer? Mr. Labrador? Mr. Labrador votes no. Ms. Torres? Ms. Torres votes yes. Mr. Tipton? Mr. Tipton votes no. Mr. Gallego? Mr. LaMalfa? Mr. LaMalfa votes no. Ms. Hanabusa? Ms. Hanabusa votes yes. Mr. Denham? Mr. Denham votes no. Ms. Barragan? Mr. Cook? Mr. Cook votes no. Mr. Soto? Mr. Soto votes yes. Mr. Westerman? Mr. Westerman votes no. Mr. Panetta? Mr. Panetta votes yes. Mr. Graves? Mr. Graves votes no. Mr. McEachin? Mr. McEachin votes yes. Mr. Heiss? Mr. Brown? Mr. Brown votes yes. Mr. Radewagen?
No.
Mr. Radewagen votes no. Mr. LaHood? Mr. LaHood votes no. Mr. Webster? Mr. Webster votes no. Mr. Rouser? Mr. Rouser votes no. Mr. Bergman? Mr. Bergman votes no. Ms. Cheney? Ms. Cheney votes no. Mr. Johnson? Ms. Gonzalez-Colon? Ms. Gonzalez-Colon votes no.
Who hasn't voted or wants to change a vote? Got him? Not right now.
Mr. Chairman, on this vote, the yeas are 12 and the nays are 21.
It's not, and it's not agreed to.